Hey, so I just want to show you some of my favorite Jess Franco films in my collection. Collecting Jess Franco is something else. It's been one of the most frustrating, challenging and exciting projects throughout the years for me. I've picked 3 films today, and one is from the 60s, one is from the 70s and one is from the 80s. So we'll start with this excellent little number. I have this Blu-ray here. It's a French Blu-ray from Gaumont, and the title is The Diabolical Dr. Z. Collecting Jess Franco also poses a challenge. Do I upgrade all of his films from DVD to Blu-ray, for example? And I would say with this film here, it definitely is worth the upgrade, because there is a chasm in terms of image quality between the DVD, which was very good for its time, but you know, times move on, and now there is this wonderful HD presentation. Now this Blu-ray here, it's not English friendly, so I don't have a problem with that, because I know this film quite well. I can follow the story. But just be warned, this here, it's a nice release, but there are no English subtitles, there is no English audio. This film is a French production, so I think it's only fair to watch it in French. Also, with Jess Franco being such a visual director, I mean, his films are enjoyable, even if you don't always get every, you know, every fine point of the dialogue. There are beautiful, beautiful actors and actresses in Diabolical Dr. Z. There is Stella Blaine, and there is Mabel Carr, and it's quite a well-written and quite an eventful film by Jess Franco standards, and it's something that would later change in his later films. Jess Franco would be a bit more slack and be a bit more free-form and dispense with action and just do his thing, really, as we'll see with his later titles. But at this point in the 1960s, Jess Franco was still a relatively conventional author, you could say, with good production values, interesting plot twists and a busy plot. So The Diabolical Dr. Z is a wonderful example of 1960s pulp with gorgeous black and white cinematography. So it's a beautiful print, and it's a very nice film to look at. So I can definitely recommend, if you don't know The Diabolical Dr. Z, it's a wonderful way to start with Jess Franco. It's not a violent film, it's not an explicit film, but it foreshadows the more frank and more sexually explicit work that would come from Franco in the early 70s, especially when adult films became legalized in France in 1974, and Jess Franco would work for a while exclusively for Paris producers. So that's The Diabolical Dr. Z, a film I revisit keenly, and each time I get something out of it. It's one of Jess Franco's most accomplished and accessible films. And next up is a film from 1970s. It's a Swiss production, and it's a kind of a private eye movie with Jess Franco taking over the lead role. The film in question is Downtown. Downtown is produced by Erwin Dietrich, who was this Swiss producer who made his fortune making those kind of erotic films, and he would produce the films himself and show them in the cinemas which belonged to him. So it was like a full cycle production with Erwin Dietrich, and he always needed new films. And when Jess Franco offered to work for him, Erwin Dietrich was really happy to hire him, because Jess Franco was so immensely productive and prolific. And for a while it was a super busy time, with Jess actually moving to stay in Switzerland and working pretty much exclusively for Erwin Dietrich. And one of the most interesting films from the period is Downtown. It's interesting because it's extremely low budget. It's extremely shoddy. And yet, it's a thing of beauty. Also, it's one of the most monologue-filled Jess Franco films I can think of. I mean, I wonder whether he wrote the narration himself. This film is like it's a private eye story, so there is that monologue from the main character's point of view, narrating, commenting most of the events. And it's really witty. The film is only known in the German dub. I don't think a French or an English dub was ever prepared for Downtown. I think it was one of the smallest ones, the more obscure ones, from the many films Jess Franco made that year for Erwin Dietrich. It's not a film that gets much praise, but I'm inclined to say that this is a wonderful moment for Jess Franco to shine in front of the camera, not as a tragic character like in his films Exorcism or The Sadists of Notre Dame, but as more of a kind of a chump and a bit of a fall guy. He's this inept but charming private detective, El Pereira. And there are lots of kind of erotic interludes where he gets to spy on beautiful girls. And obviously there is Lina Romay, who's, I guess she's at her prime here. So it's an adult film, so not for kiddies. There is lots and lots of naked flesh on display. I like Downtown because it's witty and it has that grubby charm which really defines Jess Franco for me. Wonderful film. I'm really glad to own this Blu-ray. Again, there is a huge leap in quality from the DVD. I used to own this Region 2 Anchor Bay DVD of Downtown, which was really rubbish, from a tape master, and then there is this Blu-ray taken from the original 35mm element. And you know, when films are shot on 35mm, however shoddy they are, however stupid the stories, the colors are gonna pop. No way can digital ever match that. So that's Downtown. And next up is a movie from 1980s, and that's one of the most easily accessible and one of the least obscure Jess Franco films. It's a zombie film. Of course, I'm talking about Oasis of the Zombies. That was one of the very first Jess Francos, and I remember being bored to death by this film because it's full of padding of just sand dunes and droning music and more sand dunes, and the zombies only ever show up for like a 3-4 minute scene towards the end, and most of the running time is people riding their little Land Rover over the dunes. I think it's meant to be set in Africa, and they made it somewhere in the Canary Islands maybe. It may sound like I'm not fond of Oasis of the Zombies, but of course I am. I like this film. It's not great, it's really not great. This movie drags as hell. The zombies are pretty ridiculous. The whole movie is ridiculous. It's laughable, it's cheap, it's lazy, it could have been a 20-minute film, but well. Look at the cover artwork, look at the poster. Isn't it something? Really nice, really nice. Once you get hooked on Jess Franco, you learn to be forgiving and look past the obvious technical problems which plague his 1980s films when Jess was already working on like severely reduced budgets. This is like a Eurocine production, so this film would have been shot probably in 5 or 6 days. On this Blu-ray there is a small interview from the actor Antonio Mayans, who has a supporting part in Oasis of the Zombies, and it's a very brief interview in which the actor basically says, I can't even remember making this movie. We used to make lots of films all simultaneously, so this particular one I can't even remember it. And that's the interview. Anyway, I watch Oasis of the Zombies from time to time because it's a silly 1980s zombie film with a European flair to it. Sometimes when you're tired after work, it's a kind of a comfort viewing. There is very little gore and almost no nudity in this film, but it has heaps of Eurocine charm. So I can't say it's a great film, but it has a place in my heart. Oasis of the Zombies. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.